All right, we're getting ready to roll. You ready?
Okay, go ahead, crack your whip.
Y'all getting there? I'm getting thumbs up from the other room.
All right, here we go.
3, 2.
Welcome. I'm Rogers Anderson, and today we have got a very special guest with us, and I'm looking forward to talking to Mr. Paul Pearre that spent a little time in this county. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, I'm very glad to be here.
So I'm going to you're a day or two older than me, but I'm going to call you Paul because I've always done that.
Paul is the right way, and Rogers the other way.
So tell me a little bit about your family. Tell me where you started at. The people that are watching this show, they like to know the history of people that have lived here just about all their life. So tell me a little bit about your family and where you were raised.
My dad and mother, they brought this oldest boy that you're going to see the picture that was in the Army with Patton. They brought him up there at 1 year old in 1915. And they bought this farm in Wardell Hollow. And Granddaddy, my mother's daddy, helped them on it. And for several years, he had to pay it back because there was a large family of them. And we worked on this farm all these years and raised there was 4 boys and 2 girls, and we've had some difficulty with losing them. My baby sister lost her at 13 years old. She had earlier in life at 4 years old, she was helping her daddy grind sausage, and she stuck a hand in the sausage mill, and it took half of a hand off, and daddy grabbed the belt of the motor and stopped it, and they turned it back and got a hand out, and then Robert, he was there, he drove the car to take her to Dan German's hospital.
Right here in town?
Right here in town.
Were they able to save her arm?
They saved everything. They cut this thumb off, about half of a thumb, and then took them 3 fingers plumb off, and this one was short. But she growed up a little older, and she was always partial. She'd hide it, afraid it looked bad.
So how about your other brothers?
Well, Buford, they was going to school in the early years at Lepus Fall, and actually, instead of me I went to Bingham School. And
now you got to tell people where Bingham School is. We don't have that anymore.
Well, Bingham School is on my nephew's place, and for some reason somebody was interested in getting it to put in a place for old time stuff, and they may be able to get that worked out someday. If there's enough money paid. Money is the big deal now, Roger.
That's what they say. So you all went to school there at Bingham?
Yeah, I went to school there, and there's one of my neighbors, close neighbors, Clyde Pewitt. He and I sat in the same desk, and we was awful bad interested. They had a petition in the middle of the school, and we found a knot, and we got the knot out so we could peep through it, the girls on the other side. But that's kind of typical of me and Clyde together.
It's kind of typical of most boys.
We was sort of into about everything. But we enjoyed the time. We had an old pump outside that we got water from for the school. Had outside toilets like the country people lived back there then. And we just growed up from that into being adults and going to better schools.
So when you were a young boy like that, I mean, a typical day started early.
Yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning.
And probably messing with cattle.
Yeah, still do.
And school was different then than when your children went to school.
Yeah.
But I know that it was probably a lot of hard work on the farm.
Yeah, there's been hard work for all of us. We used a pitchfork instead of balers and a wagon and 2 mules to get the hay to the barn. And we had a rope that went up in front of the barn that had a pulley on it, and you'd pull the fork down and stick it in the loose hay on the wagon and pull it up, and have a mule at the back of the barn that carried the, it took a fourth of the load. You stuck it 4 times to get a wagon load. It was piled up as high as the batten.
So,
and that hay went up in the barn, it tripped it and it fell, and then somebody, even my mother, helped Milton, the younger brother, and miles older than me, help him scatter the hay to be fed to the cattle in the winter.
so when you were a boy like that, I mean, hard times, cold, probably the house had more leaks in it, had more wind coming in, is about as much as going out.
No, well, the house was reasonably in good shape. Daddy had some awful fine carpenters that helped him back in those days. In fact, that particular carpenter, he built a lot of the houses that's here in Franklin. They kind of look alike. I imagine I could carry you around and show them to you. And he had our house in good shape, only I can always remember there's cracks in the floor in the bedroom, and it was always awful cold. We went through one winter that it went to 17 below zero when we was little. And
So-
with the ball, I slept with my daddy, and the younger sister slept with mother.
You went through school, went through elementary, and all the school was at the same place.
Yeah.
You didn't move around like we
No,
moved.
we stayed in Waddell Holler. That's where Daddy come in 1950.
And stayed there, went to school
Stayed
there,
there.
worked there.
We in 2000, and I guess whenever we sold the farm over there, that's when I moved away from the house to where I live now. But I'm on the farm. Only time I've missed being on the farm every day was when I was in the Army.
So let's talk about your time in the Army. You got called to go to World War II.
Yeah, I got called right at the end. Well, we went, it's occupation. I went to Fort Benning, Georgia. Well, went to Fort Jackson, and it was accepted there. Then they sent me, instead of going to another camp, we went to Fort Benning, and that's where 4th Infantry was. It was like, I guess it's around 40,000 soldiers in 4th Infantry.
Any other boys from around here go with you? Did you go by yourself?
I had several boys that I can't exactly remember the names that left Franklin and went with me. But we didn't, none of us, where we got separated, they formed 2 lines in Fort Jackson. And they took one line, went that way, took this line, and we thought because we could talk, we'd be crossing each other. They separated us that day. Murray Rader, local boy here in Franklin, lived on Boyd Mill Avenue right there in the edge of Franklin. He went with me, and he was at Fort Benning, but he went in a tank company. But we didn't get to go the same.
So you went overseas to Europe.
Went overseas to Germany in 1950, well, 15 months before 52. It'd been 1950, I guess, in middle of that, about that time. And I went on a ship. I was sick all the way over. And then when I got over there, I didn't know how I was going to get back. And my time run out. And then the mess sergeant, he says, with you having so much trouble, I'm going to get you flied when they turn you loose. I said, no, that thing will fall in the ocean. And I come back sick. And I almost sunk the ship at night. We went all the way down in the bottom of the thing where we was staying in the ship, so hot and sultry. I got sick, and I crawled up a step, And I says, I got to have some air. And I opened one of the doors in that storm, and it's already rising up and down, and it like to grounded the whole bunch and sink the ship. But it took me a lot of my strength to get that latch back shut.
So you got back to the United States. Did you ever think about making the military a career?
Absolutely not. I didn't. I loved the boys I was with. They would have fought and died just like they do today. The same type of people you hear of today. They'd do anything. And they had a special name for me. They called me, says Pearre, and I won it in there in marksmanship. I won a marksman honor by being a good shooter with a carbine rifle.
Well, your last name is not. I mean, we've got a school here named after you.
Yes, sir.
You've got.
It'll be here forever.
It'll be here forever. Your granddaughter. Maybe she'll get to go to school there someday.
Well, she's in the academy at West Haven now. She's already enrolled in college.
Well, when she gets a little bit older, maybe she'll say that was my granddaddy's.
Yeah,
and
I imagine it will.
Probably
and
will.
Milton, our uncle in Virginia, they was all growed up right there around the farm where we sold and stuff.
So you came back and you went back home and pretty much did farm work.
I went back straight to the farm.
Glad to get back.
Milton and his wife come and picked me up off a bus coming in here when they turned me loose over here. I'll always be grateful for Martha and Milton coming and getting me. So it's the best news I know. I just wasn't an Army person, but I done what I never did get in trouble or nothing. And one time I was in the Army, my oldest sister died, and they tried to get information to me, and I did. It was about 2 weeks later before I found out about it. And even the chaplain, he got a hold of me. He said, something going on. You ain't talked to your folks and said you lost a person. I said, well, I ain't heard anything. We was on the border of Russia and practicing with guns and stuff and getting ready to, I thought, to fight Russia is what I thought was. We went right up and had maneuvers right on the line with them.
You know, when you think about it, and you came back home, I'm sure you were glad to get your feet on Williamson County soil.
Sure I was. It was a blessed place for me. I would think it would be almost like going to heaven. That was the first step to changing something that you wasn't very happy doing and coming back to the farm, and I hadn't left it.
So a few years later, you married a wonderful lady.
I did, and 57 years old. It's probably one of the biggest honors that I ever had in my life. And I had told her, I said, if you don't, she was in a home there in Williamson County over on Big East Fork, and the people managed it. When my father died in 1977, they was building the home for these girls. And they had, the Rotary Club found out about me losing my daddy, and they said, to make something life better, says you come over and join us over at the girls' ranch and tell them about everything, and says it'd be education for me. And I even got my brother Milton, we built them a chicken house to put them so they could have chickens and stuff. And it went very well till they decided that they needed to kick Roseanne out because she's 22 years old. And I told them, I said, well, I'll tell you one thing, I'll find somebody to take care of her, and I'll go with her, and y'all won't have nothing to do with it. Me and the board really locked horns. They said she got to leave.
Because of her age.
Yeah, of her age. I said, no, give her a job here. pay her a salary and let her help these other children. They know her. She had 2 sisters there. And we did. We took out, one of my neighbors had twin boys, and they hired her. She helped raise them twin boys when I went with her. And we did. And I carried her to First Methodist Church. George Jones was preaching over there, and then I carried her to Forest Hill Baptist Church, where the girls all went. Lord Lawrence was minister there. And I told them, I said, now, if y'all don't like me, older person, marrying this young girl, you can run me off. And the Lord told me, says, you can be, if you take care of this young girl, and which I know you will, he says, you'll marry. And a woman in the church says, well, they can marry in the little small building. Said, you'll mess the service up the next day. We married on Saturday. He says, no, we won't. Says, you don't know that man. Says, everybody in Williamson County knows him, and we'll pack a church. We had half of Franklin and a third of Nashville there. It was completely packed, and I know Milton and Martha, they carried me down there, all diked out with a suit on and stuff. And I looked out across the churchyard and I says, yonder's an angel out there. And Milton says, no. Says, that's Roseanne. I said, well, she couldn't be looking like that. Says, well, that's the way you're going to be standing beside her. But the preachers stayed there and helped us. We cleaned up, and then we left, went on a honeymoon. Went down about Columbia and spent the night. Then we went to New Orleans from there. Went down the Natchez Trace. And we got down there, and then she says, Daddy, she always called me Daddy. And I was very proud of it, that she would. And she says, I'd like to go to Florida. And so we lit out from New Orleans over to Panama City, Florida. And says, I want to go on the beach. I said, well, this is where I'm stopping. I'm not going to the beach. I said, it's 11 o'clock in the day. We're going to head towards Nashville and Franklin, Tennessee. And I drove up here, and I drove as much as 80 miles an hour. I'd outrun trailer trucks part of the time, and the other part, when they's going down, they'd outrun me. And I followed. We come right through Birmingham in the busiest time of the evening, at 5 o'clock that evening. And I stopped one place we did a rest area and talking to a girl after we got in Tennessee, and I told her when I'd left. Said, well, you've been driving pretty fast. I said, yeah. Said, let me advise you. Says, you in Tennessee, you can get caught. I said, it ain't gonna slow me down a bit.
So you came on back.
Come on back. There was my family. And everybody, I can shed tears for everybody that I ever knew that didn't love Roseanne better as much as I did. She was that kind of person.
She was a good woman.
She was. She's an angel, and this little grandchild is. In fact, one of my carpenters that built barns for me, he told me, says, I remember Roseanne real well. And I looked at this baby and says, I can see Roseanne.
Well, you had 2 children. You had a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl. Joe was here.
And a fine young daughter that gave you the grandbaby.
Yeah, Joe was awful fine, and he lives with me, and he farms with me.
So if you look at your time and that you've been living on this earth, what's some of the more things that you're just so proud of?
Well, I'm really proud when me and my old original, all of the family was there. We could sit down in the front yard. It's up on kind of a bank like the house is. And we could all sit out there when the weather was hot and stuff. We didn't have to be plying mules in the field and stuff. That's probably the best time, because I kind of a little bit lazy in one respect. I kind of like to take off from the work.
Well, you're not a lazy man.
But I hadn't been shortcoming on anything. And
difficult times. There were some difficult times in your life.
well, the worst times is with the course of the deaths of them coming around. But it was pretty hard times earlier because everything back in the early 30s. See, I was born 26 in 32 and 3 when the depression stuff was. It's hard times. We had to raise truck stuff and strawberries and things, and they'd take them to Franklin. Our mail carrier, he'd pick up a crate of strawberries and carry them to Franklin. Bring them over here right there beside of the Presbyterian Church where that market.
Well, now, did you ever get to downtown Franklin quite often, or once a
Well,
week,
yeah,
maybe a month?
I always went. I didn't really drive till, I guess, I was probably in past my middle 40s before I ever drove a car.
Really?
Yeah, I was kind of scared of it. Robert, my oldest brother, is the one who encouraged me to drive.
Well, did you come to town and when you was young?
Well, I hadn't been a person to run around at night like a young one did. I stayed at home and done the chores and stuff we had to do, and enjoyed being there doing things. And I had being my young next age brother, we bought a bicycle, Montgomery Ward, and I rigged up a washing machine gas motor on the back of it. I made a pulley. We had a wood lathe that you could turn stuff out, and I turned out a pulley and put on the wheel, and then put a belt on it, and I would start it, and then I had a lever that I tightened the belt and make it go, and I rode that thing. I invented me a motorcycle.
You invented your motorcycle.
Yeah.
From what?
And I still got the bicycle. It's Montgomery Ward. And everybody tell me, says, oh, that thing is valuable. It still looks good. I didn't harm it too much. I never had no wreck, but I did get the washing machine motor off of it.
So when you went to school there at Bingham, I'm curious. It wasn't that far from your farm.
No, mile and a half.
So how many boys and girls went to school at Bingham
Well,
School?
Robert and Buford, all of them went, and then they went from there to Hillsborough, Leapers Falls.
Leapers Fort.
And Edith, the one that lost a hand in the sausage mill and then died at 13, why, we had bought this bicycle, and she learned to ride it, and she asked her mother that morning, could she ride it to Bingham School? And Mama told her no, said, be better, you better just walk with other children around here. And she come home and she told Mama, says, Mama, I'm sick. I feel awful, says, I'm so glad you didn't let me ride the bicycle. I couldn't have made it. That was the last of her. She took meningitis. That's when Harry Guffey was here, and she died with meningitis. It was measles that she had made her feel bad, and it went into meningitis. Daddy said that Harry Guffey stayed in the hospital all night with her. He got up in the bed and breathed breath in her mouth, try to keep her alive.
Try to keep her alive.
That's the most heart-painting thing I ever had in my life, because she's close to me.
Yeah. You know, we got about 4 minutes left. We're about out of time, and I could talk to you for a day.
Well, run on some of the later stuff.
Well, but you know, you're still a young man at heart, still messing with cattle.
Yeah.
And times have changed a lot in Williamson County. Times have changed a lot, Paul.
Yeah.
What are you going to tell? What's one thing you'd tell the audience out there that's watching this that's probably?
I would tell them to always be on the lookout to the people that was in agriculture, that the hard work had to do, and the expenses got so great on it now, buying equipment and stuff, tools and tractors and trucks. My son, we just bought a $42,000 Dodge truck.
It don't take much for that. Well, you're still farming every day.
Yeah, we farming. Like I tell you, we've had 2 or 3 days ago, we had twin baby calves. Then last night we had one in the snowstorm. We had to get him, bring him to the barn. And this morning I was back up there at 6:30 or 7, seeing about them, and just before I left to come to your deal, why I carried a bottle of milk up there to be sure both of them twins was getting something to eat.
You know, it's encouraging to hear, for me, to hear you still working hard and taking care of the farm and the animals, because agriculture is still a very important part of our...
It's very important. Well, you just hear about the bad things in the world where they're starving and stuff. You got to have the food. We're more or less, me and Joe mostly, is just with cattle now and raising hay. We don't raise row crop, but in the past we've raised row crop.
Yeah, I remember your late wife and your daughter, they were pretty good cooks, and they could do some serious canning. I saw them out at the fair.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we done right well with the fair several times. I did with alfalfa hay. I had #1 alfalfa hay out there one time. I carried some.
So let me kind of wrap it up. If you look out there and you've got one grandbaby now, hopefully you'll have a whole bunch of them. But if what are you gonna tell that grandbaby about Paul, about her granddaddy?
Well, I would first thing to tell her that she should be very thankful that the mother and the daddy that they got. I've got a fine son-in-law. Paul Egbert is a super boy, and he's the daddy of little Rosaline, and she's gonna be the first one. I hope before I die I'll have some more, and I've always wished that I could live till I could buy her first car and let her learn about me. But most of all, these pictures that if you may show them, I want them to see my family and see where we was at one time and where we've come so many years later. And I just hope that I can be around, and I'll know that from the cool weather we've had this year and the snow and stuff, I realize I'm gonna have to get out of it some. I can't carry on as much as I have this year, but I've been in there every day.
Well, it's time to go. I could sit and talk to Paul Pearre. If you get a chance, see him around town, thank him for what he's done for Williamson County, because you are a very important part. You're a backbone. Thank you for being with us today.
Very happy, Roger, to be part of it.
See you around town the next time.